Hey guys, welcome back to another book wrap-up of the month, in the month of May. Now, I still do sound a little bit sick. I was just so sick there for the last couple of days, and I was in the middle of filming sad books for a week, and for sure that's like the worst combination, being sick and reading sad books for a week. That was harsh now. Alright, so this month I actually read only 12 books, I believe, and I'll put the stats up here. And I think this is actually the least amount of books that I read so far this year. Crazy. So we will start off with Pestilence, and this one was almost 5 stars for me, but I feel like I love the rivals to lovers kind of vibe, but I think the issue was this is kind of classified as fantasy, but technically there's not much of a magic elements happening in here apart from the 4 horsemen. And I love Laura Thalassa writing style, and I still feel like Rhapsodic by her is my favorite one over at least this first book in the series. I don't know how the rest of the books will go, but I think I prefer that one over this, even though I love both, to be honest. And obviously it's based on the 4 horsemen. The first one is Pestilence, so he came to Earth to destroy it with the plague. And the girl named Sarah, who's the FMC in this, and so she's been volunteering for the firefighters. And so herself and her 2 other colleagues, they decide to do a pull out a matchstick. Whoever gets a burnt matchstick is the one who gets to stay behind and try to kill off Pestilence. And that's where things get really interesting from there on. And the next one that I have is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, and I absolutely love Magnolia Parks universe. This one was definitely a longer kind of book, but I enjoyed every single second, minute, hour of reading this, and I devoured this. The writing style is just so poetic, and I'm sure you've heard about Magnolia Parks at this stage from every single person, but if you haven't, it's based on the socialites in England, and the characters are just so unique, and there's a box set, and I just love all these characters with my whole heart. And obviously each book kind of deals on itself with like darker themes in it. This one really dealt with a grief kind of situation, which, I mean, it's always difficult, but the way that Jessa phrased this book, I mean, I don't have a single negative thing to say, not a single thing. And if you're not familiar with Magnolia Parks, familiarize yourself with it, because I loved it. Obviously it's a very character driven book, or books, but yeah, their love just is really complex kind of love, really realistic, and the fact that they finally made it into the dark and made it out of the dark, I loved it. And then the next one that I read is Betrayed by Emily Henry, and this one, like, Emily Henry redeemed herself, because I read Happy Place, and I'm not sure if I was kind of in a reading slump or what, but I did not enjoy that book at all. I had given that one 2 stars. So for me to try out another Emily Henry book, I feel like that says a lot, because I just thought all of them are going to be so boring. But this one, surprisingly, shockingly, absolutely shockingly, was one of my favorites. Like, the more I think about it, like, I did rate 5 stars at the time, but I feel like even more realistically it's a 4.75 for me. Like, it's an almost 5-star book, and I might go and change my rating, because, like, in all fairness, like, the little bit at the end I was kind of getting a little bit bored, but nevertheless it's still so good. And it's about these 2 writers. The FMC moves down to her father's beach house, and the next door neighbor, hello, is actually her college rival, and so they kind of make this deal between them. The writing was really impeccable, and you could really see in this book how good Emily Henry is, and she really lived up to the hype with this one. So yeah, Retreat and 2 more other books, this one included, was in my read with me summer books for a week, if you haven't seen that one. But I did read summer books for a week, and they kind of put me in a reading slump, so I don't want to pick another summery book. So I did rate this one 4.75, and I enjoyed every single minute of this one. I feel like I would have given this 5 stars. Like, it's still my favorite one in the series so far, but I just feel like it just wasn't my 5-star book. That's what I mean. And it's about Theo, who is just like such a golden retriever vibe, and obviously, what was her name? Winter, how can I forget that? Her name was Winter, and in the first book she comes across very kind of snobby, very cold-hearted, ice queen, like they kind of quote it in the book. But in this one she really redeems herself, because like she kind of has this, under all of these layers, she's so much more of a different person, and you know, you really see our character process a whole lot of things in this one, and I just really enjoyed this one. I didn't think I would because of her, but Theo just brings out a whole nother side to her, and I loved it. There's obviously in the very beginning, from the very beginning, this isn't a spoiler, but she ends up getting pregnant from a one-night stand with Theo, and I mean, pregnancy trope in this was just executed so well. Like, I never read a pregnancy trope executed so well as this book was. Wildfire. So this was the last book that I read in that vlog. So this one wasn't my favorite, to be honest, and it kind of broke my heart because I absolutely loved Icebreaker. That one was 4.5. I felt like this just was a very different kind of situation, because the Icebreaker was obviously very, it was college setting. I loved it. Like, I felt like there was a lot more happening than in this one, whereas I didn't like the fact that the two main characters' family issues were just so forced upon. I felt like it was just so forced. I mean, it would have been so much better if just that wasn't the issue that it was focusing on, because daddy issues, I mean, I thought I was gonna love it so much more, because obviously it's set in camp, they're camp counselors, and it's like a forbidden love kind of situation, and I just thought I would love it way more. But 3.5, I mean, it's not bad at all, but I just wanted a lot more banter. An Icebreaker, I was actually giggling and laughing and kicking my feet. This one, not so much, and that's why the rating is just so much lower. Alright, so the next one I read is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas, and I'm so glad to be back in Sarah J Maas universe, because the way that she writes her books, and to be honest, I was really nervous going into this series. I know this one is a prequel, so I'm kind of excited to read the series because the prequel was so good, but I was kind of getting bored at parts, I'm not gonna lie. And it's the fact that like I nearly cried at the end, because I cannot believe that Sarah J Maas pulled another move. Like, she is brutal for killing off characters. I mean, did she really need to do that? Like, did she really? And that character, like, that was gonna be one of my favorite characters, to be honest. I'm just so mad at that, but nevertheless so good. And then I read Rock Paper Scissors by Alice Feeney, and surprisingly I love this one. And the thing is, I've been getting so bored with thrillers lately because they've become so predictable. Alright, so with this one, it wasn't like, oh my god, a plot twist, but I also didn't see the plot twist coming, and I feel like that says a lot, because I don't know how I did not see it coming. But it's fast-paced, it's short chapters, it's everything you want. It's short enough, to be honest. And so basically it's about this married couple who end up going on a getaway trip for their anniversary, and secrets start coming out, and so it gets really interesting. And also he has face blindness, so he does not see faces, like he does not recognize them. So it's really interesting concept. And then I listened to I'm Glad My Mom Died. So this was an audiobook, and surprisingly I really enjoyed this one because it was narrated by Jennette herself. So it was really like, it made it a lot more personal, and it's interesting because you get to see how abuse comes in so many different ways, and you see her process it all in her own ways and everything. And she's come such a long way to actually see for what it is, and it definitely takes so much guts to air out your, you know, life details. Like, it's all just so honest and raw, and it's just so private, and she just says it all. So I mean, fair play. Okay, so next one is Blood on My Monster, and this one I just found so shockingly interesting. And yes, it's a dark romance. Yes, it's by Rina Kent, and I was a little bit on the fence about Rina Kent. I wasn't sure, and now I kind of see the hype with her. So I mean, they're both in the army. The MMC is her superior, and he has no clue that she's pretending to be a man. That blew my mind. Like, what a plot twist. I mean, it's not a plot twist, it says at the back of the blur. I'm not spoiling anything, I swear. And the only thing I have to say is I'm not sure how this was classified as dark romance, because I was not getting a dark romance vibe from it. Like, I found it too entertaining. Yes, it's a slow burn, but I feel like there wasn't enough tension between the characters. So I mean, the whole action kind of happens at the last 30% of the book. So I mean, how's that dark romance? I feel like this one would be a great starter off for the dark romances if you want to dip your toes into dark romances. And then I read Foxglove, and sadly this one was a bit more of a disappointment for me because I loved the first one so much. I feel like the second one, there was so much of Blight, and she had her own POV. I don't remember if she had her own POV in the first book, to be honest, because I read it like last year. But I've just found her so bratty, just so snotty, and I just did not like her in general. And I feel like her story kind of ruined the book. And then, you know, I love that. So he's an actual character, you know, like he's the Reaper. But then they introduced Fate, who's a character of himself. And I was just like a little bit annoyed. And then they introduced Life, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like what? Like, I feel like it just kind of started moving a direction that I just wasn't interested in. And then I listened to Fable. That was my second audiobook of the month, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it because I kind of enjoyed it towards the end. At the very beginning of the book, I thought I was gonna DNF it because I was getting so bored, and at that stage, the amount of times that she said copper, I was going to take a shot every time she said copper. Like, it was getting really frustratingly annoying. She was stranded on an island, and then she ended up on a ship. I mean, loyalties got tested, boundaries and everything, friendships were formed, so I kind of started to like it, but it was okay overall. And then last but not least, I read Girl in Pieces. Yes, Girl in Pieces. And it's the first book that I did for my Read Starbucks for a week. So surprisingly, I really love this one, and it's the fact that, like, the start of it, it kind of reminded me of Girl Interrupted movie kind of vibe. And obviously she gets out at like 20% of the book, and she goes out into the real world, and you know, she starts to try to get back to normality as much as possible. And obviously, just like any other, you know, growth and healing, it's never gonna go right up, you know, it's gonna go up and down kind of situation. And this is what she happens to go through, and it's kind of sad. And obviously it's young adult book, so it's not going to be super dark, but it's definitely going to touch upon some of the darker topics on the surface level. And it's still sad, especially the end where I was starting pages and suddenly it just the end, and I was just like, huh, don't do this to me. So I mean, I wasn't just prepared for the book to end, and I love the characters by the end of it. And it's just the fact that all of these small town characters were dealing with, you know, their own addictions and complicated, complex relationships, and it was written beautifully is all I'm trying to say. And I really enjoyed the story. So I cannot believe I'm rating a young adult book so high, but I feel like it's worth it. It's worth it, at least to me. Anyways, that's the 12 books that I read in the month of May. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what are your thoughts on them, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.